Again, this is a sunny day, and I have I have lessons to learn, so I have to be hurry to finish this reading. Yesterday we read about Captain Crew died. Yes, and you can see the heart of Min Chen and the lawyer. No friendship at all. Even the lawyer, he now uh, blame Captain Carew, spend too much money and so on. That's very sad, you know. People, they pretend to do things good, pretend to be nice, but actually they only care about your money in your pocket. So let's begin today. The late Captain Crew, she cried out. The late! You don't come to tell me that Captain Crew is. He's dead, ma'am. Mr. with jerky. Oh, why not? Why? I checked yesterday but didn't say. Jerky. With jerky. 愚蠢的 jerky brasquins brasquinis brusqueness. Oh, brusqueness. Brusqueness. Why? No. Brusqueness. 无理的，唐突的。唐突的。啊，无理，唐突。brusqueness died of jungle fever and business trouble combined. Died of jungle fever and business troubles combined. Died of jungle fever and business trouble combined. The jungle fever might not have killed him if he had not been driven mad by the business trouble, and the business trouble might not have put an end to him if the jungle fever had not assisted. Captain Crew is dead. Miss Minchin dropped into her chair again. Miss Minchin dropped into her chair again. The words he had spoken filled her with alarm. The words he had spoken filled her with alarm. What were his business trouble? She said. What were they? Diamond mines, answered Mr. Barrow, and dear friends, and ruin. Miss Minchin lost his breath. Ruin! She gasped out. Lost every penny. That young man had too much money. The dear friend was mad on the subject of the diamond mine. He put all his own money into it, and all Captain Crew's. Then the dear friend ran away. Captain Crew was already stricken with fever when the news came. Captain Crew was already stricken with fever when the news came. The shock was too much for him. He died delirious. 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 Oh. He died delirious. Delirious.
Delirious. Delirious.
Delirious. 神志。神志不清。He died delirious, raving about his little girl.
Rave.
Raving about
Rave. Rave.
Raving about his little girl, raving about his little girl, and didn't leave a penny. Now Miss Minchin understood, and never had she received such a blow in her life, and never had she received blow in her life. Her show pupil, her show patron, oh yeah, 赞助人 yes. Her sole patron. Her show patron swept away from the select seminary at one blow. She felt as if she had been outraged and robbed, and that Captain Crew and Sarah and Miss Barrow was equally to blame. "Do you mean to tell me," she cried out, "that she left nothing, that Sarah will have no fortune, that the child is a beggar, that she is left on my hand a little pauper instead of a heiress?" Pauper. Oh, poor. Pauper.
Heiress.
I can't read this word. Heiress. Instead of a heiress. That she is left on my hand. She is left on my hand a little pauper instead of an heiress. Mr. Barrow was a shrewd businessman. shrewd,
shrewd,
shrewd
shrewd,
is a true, so shrewd is a shrewd 精明的，奸诈的，精明的，奸诈的。Mr. Barrow was a shrewd businessman and felt it as well to make his own freedom from responsibility quite clear without any delay. Mr. Barrow was a shrewd businessman and felt it as well to make his own freedom from responsibility quite clear without any delay. She is certainly left a beggar. She is certainly left a beggar, she replied. And she is certainly left on your hands, ma'am, as she hasn't a relation in the world that we know of. Oh my God. She is certainly left a beggar. Miss Minchin started forward. Miss Minchin started forward. She looked as if she was going to open the door and rush out of the room to stop the festivities going on joyfully and rather noisily that moment over the refreshments. It's monstrous. Oh my God. She already earned a lot of money from them. Monstrous. It's monstrous. It's monstrous, she said. She's in my sitting room at this moment, dressed in silk gauze. Gauze? Yeah, this is gauze. In silk gauze. 纱布，薄纱。In silk gauze.
gauze,
In silk gauze and lace petticoats, dressed in silk gauze. Oh, dressed in silk gauze. In silk gauze. Dressed in silk gauze and lace petticoat, giving a party at my expense. She's giving it at your expense. She's giving it at your expense, Matt, said Mr. Barrow calmly. Barrow and Skipworth are not responsible for anything. There never was a cleaner sweep made of man's fortune. There never was a cleaner sweep made of a man's fortune. Captain Crewe died without paying our last bill, and it was a big one. Miss Minchin turned back from the door in increased indignation. In increased indignation. Miss Minchin turned back from the door in increased indignation. This was worse than anyone could have dreamed of its being. That is what has happened to me, she cried. I was always so sure of his payment that I went to all sorts of ridiculous expense for the child. I paid the bills for that ridiculous doll and her ridiculous, fantastic wardrobe. The child was to have anything she wanted. She has a carriage and a pony and a maid, and I've paid all of them since the last check came. Mr. Barrow evidently did not intend to remain to listen to the story of Miss Minchin's grievances after he had made the position of his firm clear, and related the mere dry facts He did not feel any particular sympathy for a rate keeper of boarding school. A rate, yes, a rate. Let's check. I read. I read.
irate,
I read. I read. Irate keeper of boarding school. You have better. You'd better not, ma'am. He remarked, unless you want to make presents to the young lady. No one will remember you. She hasn't a brass further fur- farthing to call her own. Farthing. Oh,
farthing,
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 farthing. Far. Did not she? She hasn't a brass farthing. 1/4便士，1/4便士，1/4便士，便士。1/4便士。farthing. She hasn't a brass farthing to call her own. Oh my God. She hasn't a brass farthing to call her own. But what am I to do? Demanded Miss Minchin, as if she felt it entirely his duty to make the matter right. There isn't anything to do, said Mr. Barrow, folding up his eyeglasses, folding up his eyeglasses and slip them into his pocket, and slip them into his pocket, and slip them into his pocket. Captain Crewe is dead, and slip them into his pocket. Captain Crewe is dead. The child is left a pauper. Nobody but you. I'm not responsible for her, and I refuse to be made responsible. Miss Minchin became quite white with rage. Mr. Barrow turned to go. I have nothing to do with that, madam, he said uninterestedly. Barrow and Skipworth are not responsible. Very sorry the thing has happened, of course. If you think she is to be foisted off on me, foisted, 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 foisted,
foisted,
foisted. If you think she is to be forced off, 强加 If you think she is to be foisted off on me, foisted off. If you think she is to be foisted off on me, you are greatly mistaken, Miss Minchin gasped. I have been robbed and cheated. I will turn her into the street. If she had not been so furious, furious. If she had not been so furious, she would have been too discreet to say quite so much. She would have been too discreet.
discreet, discreet,
谨慎的 She would have been too discreet. Too discreet to say quite so much. She saw herself burdened. She saw herself burdened with an extravagantly brought up child, an extravagant,
extravagant, extravagant,
extravagant,
extravagant,
extravagant,
extravagant,
extravagant, extravagant, 奢侈的、浪费的、过度的。extravagantly, extravagantly. She saw herself burdened with an extravagantly,
extravagant,
extravagant, extravagant,
extravagant,
extravagantly brought up child whom she had always resented, and she lost all self-control. She always resented. She lost all self-control. Mr. Barrow undisturbedly moved towards the door. Undisturbedly moved towards the door. Undisturbedly moved towards the door. I would do that, madam. I wouldn't do that, madam, he commented. Unpleasant story to get about in connection with the establishment. Pupil bundled out, penniless and without friends. I wouldn't do that, madam. He couldn't look well. Unpleasant story to get about in connection with the establishment. Pupil bundled out. Pupil bundle. Oh, bundled out. Unpleasant.
Bundled.
Bundle. Pupil bundled out penniless and without friend. Bundled. Oh, there's those unpleasant story. Okay. Unpleasant story. Unpleasant story to get aboard in connection with the establishment. Pupil bundled out, penniless, and without friends. He was a clever businessman, and he knew what he was saying. He also knew that Miss Minchin was a businesswoman and would be shrewd enough to see the truth. To be shrewd. Yes. To be shrewd enough and would to be shrewd enough to see she could not afford to do a thing which would make people speak of her as cruel and hard. Better keep her and make use of her, he added. She's a clever child. I believe you can get a good deal out of her as she grows older. I will get a good deal out of her before she grows older, exclaimed Miss Minchin. I am sure you will, ma'am, said Mr. Barrow, with a little sinister smile. Sinister, 恶毒的，凶险的，险恶的。险恶的 sinister
Sinister.
With a little sinister smile. I'm sure you will. Good morning. He bowed himself out and closed the door. And it must be confessed that Miss Minchin stood for a few moments and glared at it. What he had said was quite true. She knew it. She had absolutely no redress. No redress. Oh, redress.
Redress. Redress.
She had absolutely no redress. She had absolutely no redress. Her show pupil had melted into nothingness, leaving only a friendless, beggared little girl. Much money as she herself had advanced was lost and could not be regained. And as she stood there breathless under her sense of injury, and as she stood there breathless under her sense of injury, there fell upon her ear a burst of gay voice. And as she is under her sense of injury, there fell upon her ear a burst of gay voice from her own sacred room. Fell upon her ear a burst of gay voice. Sacred. Is it sacred? I can't read it. Sacred. Secret. Secret.
Sacred.
Secret. Secret room from her own secret room, which had actually been given to the feast. She could at least stop this, but as she started towards the door, it was opened by Miss Amelia, who, when she caught sight of the changed, angry face, fell back a step in alarm. When she caught sight of, oh, so good. When she caught sight of the changed, angry face, fell back a step in alarm. What's the matter, sister? She ejaculated. I think ejaculate.
Ejaculate.
Just speak, they have a lot of things. Ejaculate 出来。What's the matter, sister? He ejaculated. It was almost fierce when she answered, "Where's Sarah Crewe?" Miss Amelia was bewildered. Bewildered. Miss
Bewilder.
Miss Amelia was bewildered. Sarah, she stammered. Why, she's with the children in your room, of course. Has she a black frock in her sumptuous wardrobe? Bitter irony. Has she a black frock in her? Oh my God.
Sumptuous.
Sumptuous 奢华的。Has she a black frock? Has she a black frock in her sumptuous wardrobe in bitter irony?
Irony.
In bitter
Irony.
In bitter irony. In bitter irony, a black frock, Miss Amelia stammered again. A black one? She has frocks of every other color. Has she a black one? Miss Amelia began to turn pale. No, yes. No, yes, she said, but for her, she has only the old black velvet, and she has outgrown it. She has outgrown it. And she has outgrown it. Go and tell her to take off that preposterous pink silk. Preposterous. Preposterous.
Preposterous. Preposterous.
Preposterous.
Preposterous.
Preposterous. 荒谬可笑的。Preposterous. 荒谬。荒谬可笑的。Go and tell her to take off that preposterous pink silk gauze, and put the black one on, whether it's too short or not. She has done with finery. Finery. Oh, finery. She has done with finery. Finery. Then Miss Amelia began to wring her fat hands and cry, "Oh, sister!" she sniffed. "Oh, sister, what can have happened?" Miss Minton wasted no words. "Captain Carew is dead," she said. "She had died without a penny. That spoiled pampered. Pampered. That spoiled, pampered. 骄纵的 fanciful. That spoiled, pampered, fanciful child is left a pauper on my hands. Miss Amelia sat down quite heavily in the nearest chair. Hundreds of pounds on nonsense for her, and I shall never see a penny of it. Put a stop to this ridiculous party of hers. Go and make her change her frock at once. Panted Miss Amelia. Must I go and tell her now? This moment, was the fierce answer. Don't sit staring like a goose. Go. For Miss Amelia was accustomed to being called a goose. She knew, in fact, that she was rather a goose, and that it was left to geese to do a great many disagreeable things. She knew, in fact, that she was rather a goose, and that it was left to geese to do a great many disagreeable things. It was a somewhat embarrassing thing to go into the midst of a room full of delighted children and tell the giver of the feast that She had suddenly been transformed into a little beggar, and must put on an old black frock, which was too small for her. But the thing must be this was evidently not the time when questions might be asked. She rubbed her eyes with her handkerchief until they looked quite red. Oh, she rubbed her eyes with her handkerchief until they looked quite red, after which she went out of the room without venturing to say another word. When her older sister looked and spoke as she had done just now, the wisest course to pursue was to obey order without any comment. Miss Minchin walked across the room. She spoke to herself aloud without knowing that she was doing it. During the last year, the story of the diamond mine had suggested all sorts of possibility to her. Even proprietors, even proprietors, proprietors, oh, proprietors,
Proprietor.
proprietor,
Proprietor.
proprietor, even proprietor,
Proprietor.
even of seminaries might make fortune in stocks with the aid of owner of mines. And now, instead of looking forward to gains, she was left to look back upon losses. Instead of looking forward to gains, she was left to look back upon losses. The Princess Sarah, indeed, she said. The child has been pampered as if she were a queen. She was swiping angrily past the corner table as she said it, and the next moment she started at the sound of a loud sobbing sniff which issued from under the cover. Is it issued? Issued. Yes. Which issued from under the cover. What is that? She exclaimed angrily. The loud sobbing sniff was heard again, and she stooped and raised the hanging fold of the table cover. He stooped and raised the hanging folds of the table cover. How dare you! She cried out. How dare you! Come out immediately! It was poor Becky who crawled out, and her cap was knocked on one side, and her face was red with repressed crying. And her face was red with repressed crying. If you please, it's me, Mom, she explained. I know I hadn't ought to, but I was looking at the door, Mom. I was frightened when you came in. I'm asleep under the table. You have been there all the time listening, said Miss Minchin. No, Mom, Becky protested, bobbing courtesy. Not listening, I thought I could sleep out without your noticing. But I couldn't. I had to stay. But I didn't listen, Mom. I wouldn't for nothing. But I couldn't help hearing. Suddenly, it seemed almost as if she lost all fear of the awful lady before her. She burst into fresh tears. "Oh, please, Mum," she said. "I dare say you will give you warning, Mum, but I'm so sorry for poor Miss Sarah. I'm so sorry." "Leave the room," ordered Miss Minchin. Becky courtesied again, the tears openly streaming down her cheeks. The tears openly streamed streaming down her cheeks. "Yes, Ma'am, I will, Ma'am," she said, trembling. "But I just wanted to ask you, Miss Sarah. She's been such a rich young lady, and she's been waited on and food. What will she do now, Ma'am, without no maid? Oh, please, would you let me wait on her after I've done my pot and kettle? I'd that quick, if you'd let me wait on her now." Oh, breaking out afresh. Poor little Miss Sarah, Ma'am, that was called a princess. Somehow she made me than ever. That the very scullery maid reached should range herself on the side of this child, whom she realized more fully than ever that she had never liked, was too much. She actually stamped her foot. "No, certainly not," she said. "She will wait on herself. She will wait on herself and on other people too. And on other people too. Leave the room this instant, or you will leave your place." Becky threw her apron over her head and fled. She ran out of the room and down the stairs into the scullery, and there she sat down among her pots and kettles and wept as if her heart would break. It exactly like the ones in the stories. It exactly like the ones in the stories. She wailed. "The poor princess once that was drawn into the world. Drawn, drawn, draw, 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 draw,
drove,
drove, was drove into the world. Miss Minchin had never looked quite so still and hard as she did when Sarah came to her a few hours later in response to a message she had sent her. Even by that time it seemed to Sarah as if the birthday party had either been a dream or a thing which had happened years ago, and had happened in the life of quite another little girl. Every sign of the festivity had been every sign of the festivity had been swept away. The holly had been removed from the schoolroom walls, and the forms and desks put back into their places. Miss Minchin's sitting room looked as it always did. Traces of the feast were gone. All traces of the feast were gone, and Miss Minchin had resumed her yes. The pupils had been ordered to lay aside their party frocks, and and this having been done, they had returned to the schoolroom and huddled together in group, whispering and talking excitedly. "Tell Sarah to come to my room," Miss Minchin had said to her sister, "and explain to her clearly that I will have no crying or unpleasant scenes." "Sister," replied Miss, "she is the strongest child I ever saw. She has actually made no fuss at all. You remember, she made none when Captain Crewe went back to India. When I told her what had happened, she just stood quite still and looked at me without making a sound. Her eyes seemed to get bigger and bigger, and she went quite pale. When I had finished, she still stood staring for a few seconds, and then her chin began to shake, and she turned round and ran out of the room and upstairs. Several of the other children began to cry, but she didn't seem to hear them or to be alive to anything but just what I was saying. It made me feel quite queer not to be answered, and when you tell anything sudden and strange, you expected people will say something, whatever it is. Nobody but Sarah herself ever knew what had happened in her room after she had run upstairs and locked her door. In fact, she herself scarcely remembered anything but that she walked up and down, saying over and over again to herself, in a voice which did not seem to her own, "My papa is dead, my papa is dead." Once she stopped before Emily, who sat watching her from her chair, and cried out wildly, "Emily, papa is dead. He is dead in India, thousands of miles away." When she came into Miss Minchin's sitting room in answer to her summons, was white, and her eyes had dark rings around them. Her mouth was set as if she did not wish it to reveal what she had suffered and was suffering. She did not look into the least like the rose-colored butterfly child who had flown about from one of her treasures to the other in the decorated schoolroom. She looked instead a strange, desolate, almost grotesque, grotesque. grotesque. 怪诞的。When she came into Miss Minchin's sitting room in answer to her summons, her face was white and had dark rings around them. Her mouth was set as if she did not wish to reveal what She had suffered and was suffering. She did not look in the least like the rose-cut. She did not look in the look like. She did not look in the least like the rose-colored butterfly child who had flown aboard from one of her treasures to the other in the decorated schoolroom. She looked instead a strange, desolate, almost grotesque little figure. She had put on, without Meredith's help, the cast-aside black velvet frock. It was too short and tight, and her slender legs looked long and thin, showing themselves from beneath the brief skirt. As she had not found a piece of black ribbon, her short, thick black hair tumbled loosely about her face, and contrasted strongly with its pallor. Contrasted strongly with its pallor.
Pallor.
Contrasted strongly with its pallor. Emily tightly in one arm, and Emily was swathed in a piece of black material.
Swath.
Was swathed. Swathed.
Swathe.
Was swathed. Swathed. Was swathed. Here. Was swathed in a piece of black material. Put down your doll, said Miss Minchin. What do you mean by bring her here? No, Sarah answered. I will not put her down. She is all I have. My papa gave her to me. She had always made Miss Minchin feel secretly uncomfortable, and she did so now. She did not speak with rudeness so much as with a cold steadiness with which Miss Minchin felt it difficult to cope. Perhaps because she knew she was doing a heartless and inhuman thing. You will have no time for dolls in future, she said. You will have to work and improve yourself and made yourself useful. Sarah kept her big, strange eye fixed on her and said not a word. Everything will be very different now, Miss Minchin went on. I suppose Miss Amelia has explained the matter to you. Yes, answered Sarah. My papa is dead. He left me no money. I'm quite poor. You are a big beggar, said Miss Minton, her temper rising at the recollection of what all this meant. It appears that you have no relations and no home and no one to take care of you. For a moment, the thin, pale little face twitched, but Sarah again said nothing. What are you staring at? Demanded Miss Minchin sharply. Are you so stupid that you can't understand? I tell you that you are quite alone in the world and have no one to do anything for you, unless I choose to keep you here out of charity. Out of charity. I understand, answered Sarah in a low tone, and there was a sound as if she had gulped down something which rose in her throat. I understand. That dog, cried Miss Minton, pointing to the splendid birthday gift seated near. That ridiculous dog with all her nonsensical, with all her nonsensical, extravagant, extravagant thing. Nonsensical, extravagant thing. With all her nonsensical, extravagant thing, I actually paid the. Sarah turned her head towards the chair. The last door, she said, the last door. And she little muffled voice had an odd sound. The last door indeed, said Miss Minton. And she's mine, not yours. Everything you own is mine. Please take it away from me. I do not want it. If she had cried and sobbed and seemed frightened, to have had more patience. She was a woman who liked to domineer and feel her power. And as she looked at Sarah's pale little steadfast face, and heard her proud little voice, her quite felt as if her might was being set at naught. Don't put on grand air, she said. The time for that sort of thing is past. Don't set any longer. Your carriage and your pony will be sent away. Your maid will be dismissed. You will wear the plainest clothes. Your extravagant. Extravagant. Your extravagant ones are no longer suited to your station. You are like Becky. You must work for your living. To her surprise, a faint gleam of light came into the child's eyes, a shade of relief. Can I work? She said. If I can work, it will not matter so much. What can I do? You can do anything you are told, was the answer. You are a sharp child and pick up things readily. If you make yourself useful, I may let you stay here. You speak French well, and you can help with the younger children. May I? Exclaimed Sarah. Oh, please let me. I know I can teach them. I like them, and they like me. Don't talk nonsense about people liking you, said Miss Minchin. You will have to do more than teach the little ones. You will run errand. You will run errand. Just
errand,
you will run errand. You will run errand and help in the kitchen as well as in the schoolroom. If you don't please me, you will be sent away. Remember that. Now go. Sarah stood still just a moment, looking at her. In her young soul, she was thinking deep and strange things. She turned to leave the room. Stop, said, "Tend to thank me." Sarah paused, and all the deep, strange thoughts surged up in her breast. Breast, not breast. 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 Okay, breast. What for? She said. For my kindness to you, replied Miss Minchin. For my kindness in giving you a made 2 or 3 steps toward her. Her thin little chest